Welcome to the Beauty and Battle podcast, where we talk about winning in marriage by waging a war. I'm Jason Benham. I've got my girlfriend / wife, Tori Benham, with me, and we are here to talk to you about how Satan tries to get you to fight face to face with your spouse, but God designed you to fight shoulder to shoulder against Satan so that you can win in your marriage. Fighting together draws you together. We cannot wait to jump in. So here we go. So today we're talking about cultivating healthy fear in marriage. You know, this is going to be a fun one to talk about. You know, there's two types of fear. We're going to talk about the two different types, healthy and unhealthy. But I mean, if you don't have some type of fear in your relationship, then it's not going to end up well for you.
That's true. I feel like this one is it's such a balancing act sometimes.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to get into it.
I think, I'm sorry. I totally interrupted you. No. I should fear you for interrupting you.
Do you see this look in my eye that says, yes, don't you dare?
It is funny because last night I was dropping Tori off. I was running errands with her, and she had to go to Target and TJ Maxx and Ross. And one of my things is when I drop her off, there is a little bit of something in me that's like, I better be ready to pick her up, because I've gotten into a bad habit in the past where I parked way off and was kind of in la la land, and she's standing out in the smoking hot sun or freezing cold waiting for me, and she can't get a hold of me.
Yeah.
And a few like, honey, you better never do that again, or we're divorcing comments later. So I have a healthy fear now.
There is a healthy fear. You've gotten so much better. Jason used to, I mean, I think we've talked about this on the podcast before. He'll drop me off and he's like, oh, I'll just drive you. Cause we try to get, we talked about one of our habits is to try to run to the store together if we can. And then he'll do work in the car while I'm shopping and whatever. And he will often park a mile away, and I'm not exactly sure why. I guess he doesn't want anyone to scratch his beautiful white
I just
truck.
Want to get away from people. I don't like people.
So he just finds like this remote location, and come out, and I'm like, okay,
where the heck is he?
Where the heck is in smoking hot? Exactly what you said. And so yeah, there's been a few healthy fear moments where I'm like, can you just?
But tell them all, I'm like so awesome. I did great last night, and part of it is because I do have this little healthy fear of making you mad.
I actually do. Like, there are times where I feel really bad because I could tell you're like scared of being late. You'll call me like, wait, where are you? I'm coming right now. I'm like, oh my gosh.
That's like the skit you showed me with Paul Blart.
Yes.
But it wasn't Paul Blart. It was his.
No, it was
I don't even know the name of his show.
There was this little
Family Man.
No, the King of Queens.
King of Queens. Okay.
So there was a meme that was going around. If I can find it, I'll post it on Jason and Tori on my story.
Yeah.
And it was so funny. The wife is sitting down, and I call him Paul Blart because that's all I know.
I don't even know his name in the show.
The husband in King of Queens comes over. It's like, where are the scissors, honey? And she just goes on this rant that she's sick of always having to be the one to remember where everything is. And that basically, like, all I want you to do is just remember, remember where things are. What did she say? I'm tired of being a tourist guide in my own home for the last however many years. So anyways, so she goes on this big rant, like, babe, you're going to find them. You are going to figure out a way to find them. And then he looks like a puppy dog with his tail between his legs, walking over to the junk drawer, and he opens it and he looks scared to death. Like, if I get this wrong, I'm dead.
Yes.
And he opens and he grabs the scissors, and the facial expression he makes is like, oh my.
He's like, I got him.
It's like this huge relief. And we laugh so hard because it does make me feel bad. Like, there is like this fear, I think, that women have projected for their men, and it's actually
That's
really
funny.
It's actually kind of sad. Like, it made me think, oh man, like, I don't want to be like that.
But there is a healthy level of fear, and that's what we're going to talk about. And then we're going to give you 4 areas in which to cultivate that healthy fear that we think is actually really good. Okay, now before we dive in, I want to play a song for you. And this is not actually a song with words, but it's piano. And this guy is my new favorite dude. So you can look him up on, I don't even know his last name, Svingard, Kierkegaard or something like that. His name is Jake. It's called Jacob's Piano. So just like it's
incredible.
Sounds, Jacob's Piano, and it is the best piano music. And he has this song called "Her,"
Oh,
and it's about relationships. I guess it would be about marriage, but I just love this thing, and so I just want to play a little clip of this. Jacob's Piano. Check this out. That is so cool.
so pretty.
I have been blaring this, and he's got like,
I just love
it's my new favorite.
the title. I just think that's the cutest thing ever.
Her. So I played it, we played it in the car, held Tori's hand, felt, kind of like I had a little bit of a connection there.
And I think it helped you to be on time to the pull up at Target yesterday.
Marshall's,
it was
Target,
like you were
and TJ
thinking
Maxx.
about me. You were thinking about her.
Yeah, I was thinking about her. Who's my her? Okay, so let's dive into healthy fear, cultivating healthy fear in marriage. Now, we talked about two different types of fear. There's the unhealthy fear, and then there's the healthy fear. So how do you distinguish between the two? Okay, unhealthy fear leads to control, whereas healthy fear leads to honor.
I love that. I feel like it's just so simple, and it's such a tool in the toolbox to have. Like, okay, am I doing this because I want to control
it,
or am I doing this because I want to honor?
Yes.
Like, it just simplifies. Like I told you at the beginning, like sometimes it feels like such a balancing act. Like, am I doing this out of fear? Is this an unhealthy fear? Is this a healthy fear? Right? Like, this just makes it really simple to process it. Like, okay, am I doing this because I'm trying to control the situation, or am I doing it out of a spirit of honor?
Yes. And control is rooted in insecurity. Remember, the number one core human need of all human beings is security. Who can I trust? If you don't start there and you don't fix that issue, everything else falls apart. So if someone's insecure, it means that their need for security isn't being met, and it's supposed to be met by God.
Right.
Right. And then a level of it gets met by your spouse and gets met by your kids and your friends and that kind of stuff, the rest of your family. But if someone's insecure, then they're going to try to control every situation, and that includes marriage.
Yeah.
Your telltale example of this is an abusive relationship. Now, this abuse goes on both sides, but if you were talking physical abuse from the husband to the wife, that is the husband trying to control his wife. Ultimately, it's because he's insecure.
Yeah.
But the reverse is true as well. There are plenty of wives who have psychologically, mentally abused their husbands.
Right.
Right. Because they want control. Now, that's unhealthy fear.
Yeah.
So your spouse can be terrified of you.
Right.
And you're going to get what you want. And in an unhealthy relationship, it's always tyranny by the most selfish partner. So that selfish partner operating out of their insecurity creates a spirit of fear so that you'll do everything that they want and everything that makes them happy.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, then you fear the repercussions.
Yeah.
That's a terrible, terrible relationship.
Yeah. And I just think it's so helpful to be talking about this, just to bring awareness to when that's happening. When you find yourself trying to control something, it's like, okay, what I'm doing it again. Like, even to some degree with the whole me trying to make sure that you're like there at like the moment I'm out because of my impatience. Like, it's a control thing. Like, I'm okay. Like, I'm fine to wait a few minutes. Like, I don't need to, like, that's not one of those things I need to major on. Like, it's, like, it's just, yes, you would want to honor me by being there. So I'm not like in the pouring rain or in the scorching heat. Let's just, for instance, like probably never happened, but
never. Just an example.
Then then it's like, it would be fine for me to be like, babe, can you like just be thinking of me
but not try to like chop my head off kind of thing.
Exactly.
But so if unhealthy fear leads to control, healthy fear, it leads to honor. And this is so good. If you think about fearing God, why should we fear God? Because we know you'll honor God.
Yeah.
Like electricity. I love everything that electricity can do for us. I think about the houses 200 years ago. They didn't have electricity like we do, which means that they didn't have running water like we do. They didn't have the ability to have the lights on at night. They had to do candles. Electricity is awesome and we love it, but you better fear it.
Yeah.
Because you don't go taking a fork and shove it into the outlet. That's one of
Right.
the first things you teach your kids when they start to crawl.
Right.
Don't play with the outlets.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Because you have to fear electricity in order to honor electricity.
Yeah.
There are rules on how to handle electricity properly. And if you don't honor those rules,
Yeah.
then electricity will kill you.
Totally.
So you should have a healthy level of fear. It's the same thing that reminds me about in the military, when they bring the young recruits in and they go through boot camp and stuff, they teach them how to fold flags. They teach them how to put the flag up and put it down, and they never let it touch the ground. And if they do let it touch the ground, there's punishment involved. Like you got to run, you got to do push-ups and all that kind of stuff. So they create that level of fear. Why? Because they want you to honor the flag.
Totally.
If you honor the flag, you're going to value it.
Yeah.
And if you value it, you'll fight valiantly
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
And that's what they want in the military. So what we're saying is we want to cultivate a healthy level of fear
Right.
in our marriages. And the question is, how do we get it? Right? Like, how are we going to do that? And what does that look like practically? I think we got to start with a definition of love. Love is compassion with standards,
Yes.
right? It's not one or the other.
Yeah.
I think today it just drives me crazy, especially when the White House was lit up when gay marriage was legalized way back. I forget exactly what year that was by the Supreme Court. And the White House was lit up in rainbow colors. It says love wins. The first thing that went through my mind is, what's your definition of love?
Right.
Because if it's just compassion, then of course love won that day.
Right.
It's compassion. We want to feel compassion for people. So we give them what they want. Right. But that's not real love.
Yeah.
What we really want to do is show both sides of love, which is compassion with standards.
Yeah.
If you really love somebody, then you're willing to uphold the standards.
Yeah.
Like for God, if you really love God, then he says, how do you know you'll love him? By obeying what he commands. And in marriage, how do you know you really love your spouse? The compassion that you have, plus your willingness to obey the rules of marriage.
Yeah.
Even when your spouse isn't there.
Yeah, exactly.
Or your spouse won't be there.
Right.
Or you could do something and your spouse would never know it.
Yeah.
Are you honoring the standards or not? Are you living by the rules or not? Because if you don't really love them.
Yeah, so true. I remember talking to a woman. This was back when you and I first got married. And I remember her talking about her relationship with her husband and how, he had struggled with some, with flirting with other women and she just didn't care. Like I remember,
it wasn't a big deal.
It was so foreign to me, like to hear her perspective on it and the way that she was processing it. It was like, yeah, that's just who he is. And, his type is this like type of woman. He really likes women that look like this, and that. And I remember just being super confused. I was like,
I remember you telling me if you acted like he does, I would divorce you.
Yeah. But I remember trying to even process through because, this is the beginning of our marriage and I had a very strong sense of jealousy around that kind of stuff. Like, and I'm like trying to figure out the balance with it. Like, what should I fear? What shouldn't I fear? What is a healthy level of fear and what is overboard?
So while you went to one side, she went to the totally opposite other one.
So she and I are like, I'm at the other side where I'm like trying to bring it to a balanced state. And I'm hearing her and I'm like, wow, she just seems so free. I remember telling you, I'm like, she doesn't fear anything. Like she's totally okay with her husband talking about women like this. And I just remember having this conversation with you because at the time I was just trying to find a balance of healthy fear. Right. And we had just gotten married and I had felt like I was kind of going the other direction. But then here's this woman who really there was no fear. Her husband didn't fear her at all. And I almost felt like it seemed more freeing. Like it seemed like their relationship, there wasn't as much conflict. She just let him be who he was. And she was, kind of accepted him for who he was. And she seemed really secure in that.
So she wasn't fearful of him falling for another girl. And he wasn't fearful of her in terms of repercussions for him being flirty.
Yeah, there was no standard that she had erected for him. And so because she trusted him, even though he was stepping outside of
she might not should have trusted him.
Some boundaries, but it was like but I just remember thinking, wow, I wish I was more secure in our relationship to where I could be as free as she was. But at the same time, I just remember talking it through with you. And within a few years, her husband had left her for another woman. And I just remember like, okay, there's clearly has to be standards. There clearly has to be a healthy fear that this is not acceptable. It is not acceptable to be talking about another woman like this. It's not acceptable to be flirting with another woman. It's not acceptable to be alone at a restaurant eating lunch with another. Right? All those things. It's not freedom to be able to do those things.
Yeah.
It's out of line with the standards that we should be living by in our relationships. And it just kind of helped bring balance to me to know, like, yes, it's going to be uncomfortable to have to like have these standards and to feel these feelings of, I don't think that doesn't feel right. Like, I'd rather you not do that, or like, right. That's uncomfortable. You have to, and for me, a peacemaker, not wanting to deal with that conflict, but it's actually what leads to a strong, healthy, thriving relationship when you can confront those things and say, nope, this is our boundaries. These are our standards. And if you cross them, then you should fear
Lorena Bobbitt, like straight up Lorena Bobbitt. That's so funny. But like, seriously, love is compassion with standards. So what happens if you cross one of the standards? What happens if you break one of the rules? If you don't fear the consequences of that, then you'll never honor your spouse. Remember, good fear leads to honor. So we want you to honor your spouse. So there has to be a healthy level of fear.
Yeah.
So a healthy fear of your spouse leads to honoring your spouse, which leads you to value your spouse.
Yeah.
1 Peter 3:7 says this to husbands. This is important because this was a male-dominated culture back then. They used to divorce their wives for anything. And now Jesus comes along and abolishes all of that. And it's like, hey, this isn't a male-dominated culture anymore. And listen what Peter says. He says, likewise, husbands, live with your wives in an understanding way. Show honor to the woman as the weaker vessel, since they are heirs with you of the grace of life, so that your prayers may not be hindered. Man, there's so much in there. We don't have time to unpack it all. But first, honoring the wife, the woman, as the weaker vessel. You can't read that as weaker. In terms of like the way that we understand weaker, like I'm strong, you're weak.
Right.
Therefore, I'm better, you're worse. No, weaker in terms of value. So like valuable. So like a vase is weaker than a 50-gallon oil drum.
Yeah.
Right. And so we have to treat her as valuable. So I take that vase, that really expensive, priceless vase, and I put it up on the mantle of my fireplace, and I have it there, And so that's what the men used to not treat their wives like that. They would treat her just like the 50-gallon oil drum. Like you can be kicked around in the yard and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But yet we're not supposed to do that. We're supposed to treat her as valuable.
Right.
Right. And so that's what that verse is saying. But listen to this. And this is the craziest part. This is where fear comes in. It says, since they are heirs with you of the grace of life. Now he's talking to husbands. And then he says, so that your prayers may not be hindered. Ooh. Right there. If you don't treat her as valuable, God will not listen to your prayers.
Ouch.
Right there we see what's more important, prayer or treating your wife nice. God would say you treat your wife nice first.
Yeah.
Then you pray to me.
Wow.
Right there. Why? Because God's not just your father, he's your father-in-law. And if you don't treat his son or daughter right, it affects your prayer life.
Wow.
So right there, God elevates that relationship above everything.
Yeah.
So we want to cultivate a healthy level of fear. Okay, and this is where I listed 4 things. So if we're talking about some practical things in marriage, and I'm going to start right here with what are the things that we should fear? Number 1, we should fear God.
Yes.
Right? Like, so we should fear letting God down. That he takes the covenant that we made with him for our spouse seriously.
Yeah.
So when you stood at the altar, you didn't just make promises to your spouse. You made a covenant with God.
Yes.
You made a promise to God. And guess what? He takes that seriously.
Yeah.
So seriously that you are basically saying, God, I promise to treat your son or your daughter with honor, dignity, and respect.
Yeah.
And if I don't, I'm asking you not to hear my prayers.
Wow.
That's what we're saying. That's why we even see in Malachi 2, it says, you cover the Lord's altar with tears, with weeping and groaning, because he no longer regards the offering or accepts with favor from your hand. But you say, why does he not? Because the Lord was witness between you and the wife of your youth, to whom you have been faithless, though she is your companion and your wife by covenant. And God is saying, I'm not accepting your sacrifices. I'm not hearing your prayers. Why? Because you've been faithless to the wife of your youth.
Wow.
This is how serious this is.
Yeah.
Like, if we don't cultivate a healthy level of fear, we're in big trouble. So
Yeah.
number one, we've got to fear God. Like we got to fear letting him down.
Yeah. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom.
There you go. Which we understand that. Like when our kids are really small,
Yeah.
I got to teach them first to fear mom and dad when we
Yes.
say no.
Totally.
If you disobey when we say no, I have to punish.
Right.
You have to fear me first.
Yes. It's so true. Like even with parenting, the kids that have gotten that the quickest are obviously the easiest for us to parent, right? The kids who are governed by God, who have a conscience, who say, who feel guilt, they feel, they, when they do something wrong, they come to us and they're like, I'm really sorry I did this, because they feel guilty and they feel that, that they've disappointed God. Right. And it's like, okay, it's, you're good. Everything's good. Like now that you've repented, now turn from that and don't do it again. But it's the kids that don't have that conscience, right? That don't have that fear of the Lord, and there's nothing governing them from doing wrong. Right.
Yeah.
And, we had a child like this who didn't really have a strong conscience. And it was really challenging for a little while, because you're just constantly having to think for them and to bring things up and confront, because they're not being governed by God. And then when the Lord got a hold of his heart, it has been the greatest joy of our lives. And it has relieved us of our parenting. What am I saying? Parenting.
The mantle. Like it's been handed. God's got it.
Exactly. It's like they're so easy to parent now, because it's like you're governed by God. Like you have a conscience. You feel bad when you do something that's not honoring to God. And so I don't have to stay on top of you. I don't have to, I don't have to remind you or confront you continuously. You are governed because of your fear of the Lord. And it's just such a gift. And that's such a gift in our relationships, when you are governed by God, when you have a fear of the Lord, so that you feel guilty if you've done something that's out of line.
Yeah. So that in marriage, one, you don't want to fear, you need to fear letting God down. Okay. Now we're saying you don't wake up in the morning and think, okay, I don't want to let God down.
Right.
No. Because you're ruled by love, not law.
Yes. Exactly.
So, but what we are saying is that you have to have that generalized understanding of, I do fear the Lord.
Yeah.
With the way that I treat my spouse. Well, number two, you need to actually fear your spouse.
Yeah.
You need to fear letting your spouse down,
Mm-hmm.
right? Your spouse gave you their heart and said, it's yours.
Yeah.
Now, you need to have a certain level of fear of protecting the heart,
Yeah.
right? You're supposed to cherish your spouse like a gift.
Mm-hmm.
You made certain promises. You need to fear breaking those promises.
Yeah.
Like if you don't fear like the repercussions of stepping out of line in ways that you should not step out of line, well, then that's where abuse comes in. It's to the drastic degree, the guy can keep beating his wife and she'll keep coming back to him.
Yeah.
Right? No. That man has no fear of his wife.
Yeah.
So he needs to first have fear of God, but then he needs to have some fear of his wife. It's like, no, you will not touch me like that. If you do, me and the kids are gone.
Totally.
Actually, we're not gone. You're gone.
Yeah.
I will report you to the police.
Yeah.
And I've got camera. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like there's got to be a certain level of fear.
Yeah. Like
You can't just get away with that.
No. And I think you see this a lot with women who don't like conflict, right? They don't want to deal with it. They don't want to disrupt the peace in the home. And so they get walked over and they allow things to continue that should have been nipped in the butt years earlier, to where you stand up and you say, this will not happen. You will not talk to me like that.
Yes.
You will not treat me like that. You will not go out to lunch with another woman at work.
Yeah.
You will not be flirting with, that will not happen. That's, that will not happen in our home, period. Right.
Yeah.
But it goes too long because they don't want to deal with the conflict.
It reminds me of a former college buddy of mine who was talking to me, years back and said, I kind of cultivated a little bit of a flirty personality when I would go to the workplace, and my wife was in there one time and she kind of saw me talking to somebody that she had already felt a little threatened by, this particular woman. And the woman said, or when the husband and her got to their house later on for dinner, she said, you will not act like that anymore or I will leave you.
Yeah.
And he told me, he said, that snapped me into place. I was like, I didn't think anything of it, but
right.
She said she would leave me if I didn't start, get my act together.
Yeah.
And he said it shaped me into place. And I'm like, good. That's the type of
Sometimes
fear.
that's what you need.
That's what I'm talking about. So number one, it's, you need to fear letting God down. Two, you got to fear letting your spouse down. Three, you know what? You need to fear letting your kids down.
Yeah.
And what do I mean by this? Like, your kids are watching you.
Yes.
Your marriage is their university of relationship.
Yes.
They are learning all about how you're supposed to get along with somebody by watching mom and dad.
So true.
And you need to understand and have a healthy fear of, I need to do this right.
Yeah.
Now, and you know what? You're not going to get it right all the time. And when you get it wrong, let them see you apologize to each other and then apologize to them. And then honestly, pray with them and then ask God to forgive you for the way that you talk to mom.
Yeah.
Or the way that you treated dad. Or God forbid you guys are talking about your spouse to your kids. That is the number one most damaging thing that you can do.
Yeah.
You're not going to believe what your dad said. Don't tell him this. It's like, no, I get that, if you're going to have like a conversation, like we're doing a surprise party, or, maybe one of the daughters is talking, like our daughters talk to mom, and there's certain things they want to share and they don't want dad to know. I get that. But I'm talking about when the spouse, when mom or dad is talking about their partner with their kids.
Yeah. Right.
And then being like, okay, this is bad on your dad. Please don't tell him I told you this. Oh my gosh, shame on you.
Yeah, totally.
That's a juvenile move.
Yeah.
We don't do those things unless you're in the 7th grade. So we just don't do that. So we actually need to have a healthy fear of, my kids are watching.
Yeah.
And I want them to turn out well.
Yeah. Or just a healthy fear of not taking your responsibility of parenting seriously enough. Like, I feel like even this week I saw this played out with you. You had been gone for several days. I knew you were exhausted. You had been on a plane for 10 hours and got home really late. And one of our kids came in and they needed to discuss an issue that they were having. And you very patiently spent a lot of time working through an issue with them that typically would have been easy to be like, hey, we're going to talk about tomorrow. I'm exhausted. I'm not. But I know that you chose the harder route because there was a healthy fear in you of not taking your responsibility of parenting serious enough. Like, you took, like, you rose to the occasion out of fear of not parenting this child's heart
and like, detachment.
And
if he detaches,
exactly,
or she detaches.
I mean, we have read a lot on like attachment theory and how important it is for our kids to feel the safety of coming to us and
talk about anything.
Right? Like, when you begin to understand the psychology and our human needs, you start to fear not that not taking that responsibility the way that we should. Like today, it was senior day for Jake, and I didn't really have to go. I went last year for his junior year. This is our 3rd kid. Like, I've been to all of them.
Yeah, you know what's up.
But there was like this little healthy fear inside of me that was like, honor Jake by being there. Yeah. Even though Jake didn't even go because he doesn't have class on Tuesdays. But because, like, finish well. Like, this is your 3rd. It's such a tendency to like just kind of slack off. The finish line. Right? There's like tendencies like, I'm so tired. Like, I don't want to go to another parent meeting. But there's a little bit of a fear that says, but if I want to honor Jake, like, I want to honor him by understanding all the things that we need to do to get him to the finish line. I want to make sure I'm checking all the boxes and that I understand what my responsibilities are for this senior year with him. What are the opportunities at the school, right? So that healthy fear motivated me to go. And I just think we need that. Yeah, totally. So I wanted to list 4 things that we should fear in marriage. Again, we're not ruled by these things. We're not sitting here consciously thinking of them all the time. Right. But they are things that are kind of in the background. Subconsciously, we need to know that it can happen. 1, fear letting God down. Okay, you made a covenant with your spouse. Keep it. God takes that serious. Number 2, fear letting your spouse down. You gave them their heart. They gave you their heart, so cherish it. Number 3, letting your kids down. They're watching you. Yeah. And number 4, and I think this is really important, letting your in-laws down. I think this is a really good play. Whether you have one in-law or no in-laws at this point, because maybe they passed, or you've got 2 in-laws. The fact is that they entrusted their son or daughter to you. Yeah. And now that Tori and I are entrusting our son to Bailey Stinson, who's fantastic. We're so happy to have her in our family. They're getting married next year. Yes. We are entrusting our
like Trey is our firstborn to
Yeah.
Bailey. And then one day Allie will get married. And one day
Yeah.
Jake will get married. And one
it's
day
just
Lundy.
like the joy that it brings me to see Trey light up when she calls, or the joy that it brings us to see their relationship and to
Yeah.
see how much she makes him better, like, and to see how much happiness she brings to his life. Like, it's
Yeah.
just, that's how God feels about us. He's like,
Totally.
like, I just, when I see her doing that, I'm like, that's how God thinks about when I'm treating Jason well. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you're treating my kid good.
And I can totally see this. Tori's parents live next door, Frank and Kristen. They're all-stars. They're all-star grandparents. They're all-star in-laws. There is something very real inside of me that's like, I do not want to let Frank down, especially Frank, but Kristen too. Like, I don't want them to be disappointed in me.
Yeah.
If they heard me yelling at Tori, or if I took off and left her, or if I was always hanging out with the guys and I was, being a teenager and having to have my own private time alone, and she's taking the kids all the time and I'm leaving, I know that would disappoint them, because that's not what they would want. So there is this healthy level of, I want to make them proud.
Yeah. And they're always watching.
Because they're next door. Never eyes off. Searchlights.
Extra accountability
cameras.
for Jason.
I wouldn't be surprised if I saw her dad upstairs out one of the windows with his binoculars. No. But do you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's important. I think a little healthy level of, and I say fear, maybe it's not really fear, but it's more of a desire to make them proud. But there is some fear there. Like, I know that if I got rough with Tori, Frank would walk over with a baseball bat and he would not be ashamed.
He would be excited.
He would not be scared.
He would be excited about it.
To break my kneecaps. You know what I'm saying?
He's been waiting for that moment. I'm just kidding.
He's an Italian, so he's ready. And if he doesn't do it, he knows people.
Yeah, funny story. My dad, whenever Jason would leave town, now we have alarm system and everything. But still, even when we had alarm system, I would call my dad all the time. Like, I heard something. I think, and so I heard something in the kitchen. I think somebody's in the house, and he would walk over with his baseball bat.
Yeah,
every time is the best.
But I think we were scared to get him a gun because we weren't sure what he would do with it. So anyway, but that's healthy fear. Remember, unhealthy fear leads to control. Healthy fear leads to honor. Mm-hmm. That honor leads to value. You'll fight valiantly for your spouse if you start with fear.
Yeah.
So don't ever lose that. That's how you cultivate healthy fear in marriage.
Okay. Recipe, guys.
Boom.
All right. So you're not going to be getting a reel this week on Jason Tori because my phone is broken. I'm not bitter or anything, but one of the kids dropped my phone in the pool.
Not mentioning names today?
Not mentioning. No? I'll save them.
Okay. Got it.
I still love her.
Oh, it's a her. And there's one that doesn't live in our house anymore.
I have forgiven her. Yeah. So phone is, I'm hopefully going to get a new phone in the next day or two. So can't do a reel, but I'm going to tell you guys, and I've shared this recipe, but we have been doing a bunch of spin-offs of this pancake recipe. It's a healthy protein recipe, pancake recipe that we've been making for years, and it originated from Trim Healthy Mamas. And recently I got a magic bullet from like Marshall's for, I think it was like $20. If you ever see one at one of those stores, you need to nab it up, because we've been making these all week, or actually all month. And Trey, my son, he comes home on the weekends, and he's been loving. We've been making these together. Trey's been my baking, cooking partner. He's like really into cooking.
He's into it.
He's getting ready to get married, and he is starting to love to cook, which is like so exciting to me because we've been doing a lot of cooking together.
Yeah.
And so he came up with the idea. So it's kind of starting to feel like fall around here. At least it was last week. It was like dropping down to like the 70s, right?
Yeah.
It felt amazing. And then it was like a tease because now it is like 90 degrees. But anyways, he's like, Mom, we've got to do like all the fall kind of things. We got to make apple donuts. We got to make like fall cookies, whatever. So when he came home this weekend, he's like, okay, I've been thinking about it. It's like the Paul Blart when he's talking to his daughter, and he comes in, he's like,
Maya, I've been thinking.
Gonna go with the double parm. Trey's always thinking about food. Always thinking about the next thing we're gonna make. And so anyways, he's like, okay, so we'll do those protein pancakes, but instead of using, so the original recipe is this. It's very simple. It's a half a cup of oats, a half a cup, and I use the organic sprouted oats from Costco, a half a cup of cottage cheese, a half a cup of egg whites, and then a half a teaspoon of baking powder, and then just a little dab of maple syrup. You put that in the magic bullet or in a blender and blend it up, and then it makes the most amazing pancakes. You can add blueberries, you can add chocolate chips. Lundy loves chocolate chips. Trey loves the chocolate chips. Super amazing protein pancake recipe. But so this is the twist, guys.
There's a twist.
You can try all sorts of things. We took Trey loves the Kodiak oatmeal packets that come. It has 12 grams of protein per serving. He goes through those things like
intense.
Yeah. And so you add that as the oatmeal because that's exactly half a cup. And then you can have like different flavors. So this week we were doing the apple cinnamon one, which is a very fall. Our whole house smelled delicious.
Yes.
And then yesterday I'm like, okay, let's try that. And then I'm going to add, it needs like more something chunky, like apples, more like chunks of apple. So I diced up a bunch of apple, put it in the air fryer with cinnamon and nutmeg, and that alone made our house smell like heaven.
And it was good. And
then add those. So you just throw it in the air fryer for like 10 minutes. It softens the apples. Add that to the pancake mixture if you can use a cast iron skillet with a bunch of butter. Oh my gosh.
Bunch of butter. Because then the edges taste like you're eating at Cracker Barrel.
Yes, it is. Okay, here's another little tip for you guys.
You're full of tips today.
Yeah. Because I've been living on these protein pancakes. Instead of putting maple syrup on the top when you're done, okay, you put it on the griddle. It's starting to cook. Add a little maple syrup to the side that's up. The side that's like bubbling into the mix. Just drizzle like a little line of maple syrup throughout it. Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's so good. Because it almost
game changer.
It's like almost not caramelizes, but it with the butter. Oh my gosh, it's just so good, you guys. So
it Cinnabons it.
That's almost what it is. It's like a dessert. It makes it taste like a dessert. So if you want to try different flavors, you could try the apple cinnamon with the Kodiak one, or you could try the blueberries cream and then add blueberries, and it gives it more of a stronger blueberry flavor. And then it adds another 12 grams of protein. So Trey and I calculated that the recipe using the Kodiak gives you 40 grams of protein. And Trey pretty much ate the whole, I had one bite, I think, of that one. I made my own batch.
Yeah.
So that's 40 grams of protein, and it feels like you're eating a dessert.
It was good. It was really good. I had it right after a workout, and I was very pleased.
I feel like that was a lot of words.
It was a lot of words
for a recipe. I'm sorry, guys. That was a little chatty.
It's okay. There's a lot going on there.
There's a lot going on. And then, like I said, you could do the regular way and just do the chocolate chips. That is also delicious.
Yes, it is. And those were more words. So thank you for more words on the recipe. This is fun.
I get excited about pancakes.
That's right. I like it. Well, thanks for hanging out with us, gang. Healthy fear and relationship. Remember, healthy fear leads to honor. Unhealthy fear leads to control. Choose healthy fear.
Choose healthy.
Peace.
See you guys.